With so many dating apps out there like eHarmony, Match.com, Christian Mingle, Tinder, Bumble, and so many more online sites, it's never been easier to find love in a digital world. But at the same time, it's never been more difficult to find the right one. Hi, I'm Jolly, host of The Jolly Abraham Show, where my sole mission is to help high powered women flourish in 8 specific areas of their life. And today we are talking about love. Joining me is Matt and Lisa Nicholson, who dated online, found love, and even got married. Matt was born in Ohio and relocated to Texas, moving from Fort Worth to the Woodlands and ended up in Houston, where he currently resides. He works in the logistics supply chain and he's been there for about 13 years. His hobbies include sports, music, outdoor activities, and traveling. Elizabeth, on the other hand, was born and raised here in Texas. Some may know her as Lisa. She's a University of Houston graduate, go Coogs, and has worked in the nonprofit sector, specifically in development. And now she works at Home Depot as a design consultant in online sales. Her hobbies include music, traveling, attending live events, and spending time with family and friends. Please help me welcome to the show, Matt and Lisa Nicholson. Woohoo! Hey, Lisa.
Hey.
Actually, let me pause this.
Thanks for inviting us to
Matt and
Thanks
Lisa.
for inviting us to be here.
Yes, welcome. It's so good to have you guys.
Good to see you, Jolly.
Yes. Lisa, you look so beautiful.
Thank you. I even wore little heart earrings for you.
Oh, for
Valentine's
Valentine's Day. Aw, thank you. So guys, listen, there is so many people out there that are just really skeptical about online dating. I mean, honestly and frankly speaking, it's still weird in people's eyes, right? I mean, people are thinking, especially women, right? Is the guy a catfish, right? Like the Tinder swindler? Does he just want to hook up with me? Is he wanting me just for my looks or my money? I mean, what do you guys say to that? Like, how was dating? You guys use the dating apps, right? Like, how was it for you guys?
We've both used multiple dating apps. So when Tinder first came out, before it was known as a hookup app, I was on Tinder. I actually met a girl on there that I dated for over 3 years. And I did Bumble, and that's actually where I met Liz. And I never viewed them as a hookup app, or because that's the way people view them nowadays.
Okay.
Because I used them to the purpose that I wanted them for, right? I'm not that person that's looking just for a hookup. So I used it to my preferences, right? So even though it kind of gets they get that reputation, I don't know. I never used it for that because that wasn't the purpose for me.
Right. I mean, same here. I've used a lot of them. I probably have a critique on several of the dating apps, but you get to choose your path. No one gets, especially with Bumble specifically, it was made by women for women. So women get to make the first move. Even if you match, I had to be the first one to talk to Matt, which had it, it gives the woman more of the, I don't want to say upper hand, but the initiative. You get to take the initiative once you're matched. If, I want to pursue this match or I don't have to. So kind of like what he said, if you want to use it as a hookup app, any app can be a hookup app. I mean, Uber Eats could be a hookup app because someone's coming. So it's just a matter of what are your preferences and what are your goals to get out of it.
And it's the same thing, Jolly, I would say, if you compare it to where do you normally meet people, right? If you go to a grocery store, or you like to go to the library, or you go to the bar, or you go to a restaurant, your motive for meeting somebody could still be the same thing online as it is in person, right? People go to bars all the time with the idea that, hey, I'm going to meet somebody here just for X reason, right? Whatever reason, insert reason. So you can have the reason it just depends on who's on the other side of that app.
And I'll play the other side. So a lot of people may not go to bars, or they're not going to a lot of social settings. They might be going to work, they might be going to church, and they might be going home. So they have very limited circles, right? I can use myself as an example. I mean, I grew up in church. I mean, at one point I was going to the biggest church in America. I was there for 10 years. Never dated but one person while I was there the whole time. Just because the numbers are high, or like I'm moving, I'm social, I'm meeting people. You don't always make that connection that you're hoping will just show up at your doorstep, right?
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Let me take a little bit of initiative and just, I guess, essentially carve my own path. So I did.
So did you guys like exclusively do online dating, or were you open to meeting people in any kind of way?
Any kind of way. Like, I let my parents set me up for proposals. And then I mean, with my consent and without my consent. And I mean, I would let friends, friends obviously know I'm single, especially I had older friends that were married, and, they're always like, who can we hook Lisa up with? Who can we set her up with? And I mean, it just never panned out that way for me. So, and I couldn't be more of a social butterfly. So it's not like people don't know, me in social settings. So yeah, I just was ready to try something different.
Okay. Now, how long did you guys date online? How many, was it years? Was it months? Was it off and on?
Oh,
We met the 2 weeks after talking online.
it wasn't 2 weeks.
What?
It was a short amount of time.
It felt shorter. Like
Wait, I'm sorry. How long did you guys do online dating before you met each other?
Oh, okay. That was for probably 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
For both of you?
I would say mine was longer. I'd pay maybe like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I was 25 when I started dating online. And then I met her when I was 30. So
I started like 28 or 29.
Okay. So now this is the juicy part. This is what we all want to hear. Tell us about how you guys met online, like that whole story.
go ahead.
I meant to get a piece of paper to show you how it actually happened.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
I want to hear all the juicy details.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's like an act of God that we actually met. Knowing how the apps work
Really?
in a certain radius, and we didn't live anywhere near each other. So
Okay, so me and 3 of my girlfriends were sitting on the couch swiping at the same exact time on Bumble, okay?
Okay.
And this is the 610 loop. Can you see it?
No.
Oh no, back it up. There we go. 610 loop.
just use your hand.
Okay. So imagine this is the 610 loop, okay?
Okay.
I was living in 3rd Ward at that time with my best friend. I'm down here. Matt lives in the Woodlands up here. My radius is about this big, maybe 15 miles. I only want to meet people within 15 miles of me, okay?
Wow.
Change it at any time. If there's nobody within 15 miles, I'll move it up to 25 or whatever. So here's Matt in the Woodlands, and he's driving down through 3rd Ward on 288 to Pearland, way down here in the south. I just happened to be swiping at that time when he was driving from north to south, and we
Get
I
out
didn't
of
see
here.
it. I didn't see it happening, right? I just swiped down and moved about my merry business. Next morning, I look at my phone and I look and it says, Matt Nicholson matched with you. And it says 50 miles. I was like, 50 miles? There's no way. I mean, and then I thought, oh, maybe he's from out of town. Maybe he's here on like a job site visit or something. Because there's a lot of people that use it just for travel to meet people locally, right?
Okay.
So I was like, well, let's go ahead and chat. We started chatting on the app. And he didn't waste I don't think we chatted for very long on the app, maybe 3-4 days.
Yeah, until we wanted to meet.
I have screenshots before I before I deleted the app. I actually took pictures of our chat of like that we talked about stuff. But he was like, "Hey, I don't get on this app very often, or like I want to get off of it. So here's my number. Just text me directly." And so then we started texting, and he asked me out on a date almost like immediately.
Well, because like you said, Jolly, you asked the first question, you're like, well, what about the catfishing and the Tinder swindler and all those things you hear about, right? So I think to use online apps and online websites correctly, you really do have to meet that person very soon because of the catfishing, because you want to make sure that this person is who they say they are. So to me, I use them as more of a launching pad, as connect with people initially. Because if you don't have the online base, then you can only meet people wherever you physically are, right? Whether it's church, whether it's work, whether it's a grocery store, if you work out at a gym, you can meet people in a physical location. So I used online dating more as a launch pad. Maybe I just didn't happen to go to the same place as this person, but I still have a way to meet them.
Because paper, he and I would never cross paths.
On paper.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot in common if you were to put us side by side. He's an outdoors guy, he's playing golf, he's, going kayaking. He's spending more time doing social things that aren't like, like big groups of people. And he's new in town. So
I didn't know anybody in Houston because I was new here.
So Matt, okay, so you saw Lisa's picture. Obviously you were attracted. Were you like, okay, let me just meet her just to, to connect and to make some kind of connection?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I look at the app as people say, well, all you're attracted to is the physical attraction, right? You're being right or left based on their picture and just strictly what they look like. But at the same time, you can pose the question, when you go to a bar and you walk up to a woman or a man, you're only walking up to them because you're physically attracted. There's some sort of attraction there, right?
That's true.
So they're swiping right on an app saying, yes, I think you're attractive, or you see them across the room at church, at work, at a bar, then you're going to walk up to them. So swiping right is essentially walking up to them in real life.
But it kind of takes out that legwork because we already know we're attracted to one another in one way or another. And then we have a good starting point to know there's no like, oh, does he like me? Does he find me attractive? Any of that is just kind of like, there's a baseline point. We're attracted to each other. Now let's see where we can go from here.
Awesome. So what made your relationship, you now meet, it's 2-3 weeks in, what made your relationship blossom? What made it work where it ultimately led to you guys getting married?
Do I answer that?
No, you had a good answer earlier.
One thing I think that's really important is, it's real. There's a lot of negative connotations to dating apps, right? People are con artists, people are dishonest, people aren't showing their true colors. But as much as the people say that, I truly believe that there are people out there looking for love, trying to find it in a good, honest, pure way. And with all of my, app experiences, I met some really fascinating people, some really interesting dates and all of that, but it never like clicked, right? And then I meet Matt, he takes me on our first date. I mean, they tell you you're not supposed to talk about religion, politics, and certain things. You're not supposed to talk about those things, right? We literally talked about those things on the first date. And there was a lot of sincerity there and like just honesty that just really made it easy from start into the progression. Like when he said he was going to text me, he was going to text me. When he said he was going to call me, he was going to call me. When he said, hey, do you want to go out again? And I said, yeah. He goes, how about this Thursday? How about Sunday? And there was already plans there was building blocks. So it gave me the confidence to be like, okay, it made me even more optimistic as we moved along. And it became really easy just because that ease of feeling like, okay, this person is being intentional and sincere with me.
Okay, good. Matt, anything different you want to add?
Yeah, I think you just have to be the person online that you are in real life. Because honesty is only going to get you to where you want to go. You have to be honest with yourself. Why are you on this app? Why are you online dating? It's the same reason I was trying to meet people offline. Online and offline, I felt like I tried to be consistent. And I feel like that's something that you have to do and be honest with yourself of why am I doing this? Why am I here? Unfortunately, there's a lot of people online and offline that I don't know if they just don't know what they want or they're not honest with the other person. And it doesn't lead to furthering that relationship, whether it's online or offline.
It's hard, to be honest, if you really think about it. People are non-confrontational. They don't want to hurt people's feelings. There's a lot of like social, I don't know what to say there. It's just like, after the first day, let's say it didn't go great for one person, it went really great for the other, or someone's just excited about the idea of dating someone. I think honesty is probably better than leading someone on or saying something that might give them a glimmer of hope. I know that sounds really like straightforward maybe, but I think that honesty is really important in the exchange, because if you're not honest, it can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. I think that's with any relationship.
Mhm.
So when you guys first met each other, I mean, you guys went on dates previously with other people, I assume.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so when you guys are meeting for the first time, I mean, I'm sure you have boundaries that you're not letting yourself get past so that you can protect your heart. What were some of the things, if you can remember, that you were doing to safeguard yourself so that, hey, you know what, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to be okay? Like, did you have any emotional guards, or, did you tell people where you were at so that, because you don't know who is coming, like those kinds of boundaries?
As a woman, and this goes whether you're online dating or offline dating, my friends would always know where I was. And someone, to some extent, they knew what I was wearing, or some might even text me to ask me, hey, how's it going? Kind of get a gauge just to check. And that's just me being safe, just in case something does go awry. Like, you just never know, right? So, I feel like you should be vigilant always, whether online dating or offline dating. Just be vigilant, use wisdom. And I think for me, it was being really open-minded. Like, the more lists and boxes and things that you have, the less options I feel like are on the table, like for you to meet different types of people. Like, for me, it was not just about, oh, I want to find the love of my life, but I also am interested in like human interaction and learning new people and having new experiences. And I did a lot of cool and neat things that I would have done otherwise had I not gone out on dates with different types of people.
Yeah. From the man side, when you're online dating, you also have to take into account that as a woman going to meet a strange man that she's never met before, you have to think that way, like think from the woman's perspective. So I always recommended places that were very public, so that way she felt comfortable that there were going to be people around. I tried to be considerate of how she was feeling going into a situation, meeting some strange guy. And I always made sure that I met her there, because I know if you're just having some strange guy pick you up for the very first time, you've never met them, at least she has a way to get away. She has her own car. We're meeting in public places. Just trying to be respectful about the woman's perspective of the whole situation. So
Wow, that's such a great, I mean, clearly you're such a great guy, Matt, because that's how a great guy thinks. You know, he's thinking about the woman, he's thinking about her needs. So that's so fantastic. Guys, I wanted to ask you, so clearly Matt is white, Liz, you're Indian. How was it being interracial? I mean, like any qualms within yourselves with your parents, friends?
Um,
well, I had dated interracially before, Liz. So I had already introduced my family to somebody of another race. So all of that kind of rockiness that initially comes when you're dating interracially was kind of out the window. It didn't, when something is a first in your family
Yeah.
and they're not used to something, it's kind of shocking. And there are things that are said that people act a certain way. But I think that was all gone when Liz came into the picture. And I'm actually thankful that Liz wasn't the first woman of another race that I dated, because it made it all easier.
Yeah.
But we had obviously cultural differences. I had never dated an Indian woman before. So learning the Indian culture. And then when I met her parents for the first time, I'm calling them by their first name. And apparently that's a big no-no. So I got told by Liz, hey, my mom said, please just don't call us by our first name. I said, okay, that's easy enough. If that's all I messed up, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't give him any notes. I just said, go in there and be yourself. And I was confident that if there was something that was like, needed to be corrected, he's not easily offended or anything. I just kind of whispered. I think it was on our way home that I actually said, hey, just so you know.
Her mom texted her on our way home.
No, she was wiping the table down in front of me, and she goes, hey, just so you know, just tell him to not call us by our names. I was like, okay, sure, I'll tell him that, which I knew they were going to say that, but it was just funny to hear her actually say, yeah, you should probably tell him not to call us by our first name. On my side, I think what made it easier was that my brother broke the ice. So he's not married to an Indian woman. He's married to a white woman. And that kind of broke the ice as far as like, he took the brunt of that first impact of like, our parents experiencing shock of like not marrying an Indian person and things of that nature. And then I think another thing that really helped was I waited. I was 35 when I got married, 34 when I got married. I think my parents are just really just having a sigh of relief that I finally found someone and that I was ready to get married. So they were like, we do not care. Whoever he is, just bring him over here. Let's get this, let's get this done. So, but obviously it's not just anyone. Once they met him and they saw his character and things, I mean, I'm sure he has more to say about what his experience was like going over there to meet my parents. But it was a very beautiful experience, I have to say. I mean, at this point, they love him more than they love me, the way they, just fawn over him.
So it went a lot better than you expected, Lisa.
I wasn't expecting a negative experience, I don't think, because at that point I was living on my own. I was establishing my independence, which is not common with, Indian culture of women moving out and living single. And, it's usually from parents' house to husband's house, right? So in many ways I did take some, non-traditional steps in my life to, carve my own path. But I know my parents, just like any other Indian parent, they just wanted to see me settled down and happy and married. And so when I finally opened up about it, I think my mom was just like so surprised that I was even talking to her about it. She was like, oh, wow, I'm so happy. She didn't say I'm so happy for you, but her tone and the way that she was just so excited you could tell that she was like, okay, let's pray about this. And,
Aw.
it was a good moment of like, I was able to be open and honest with my mom about what's happening in my world.
Yeah, that must have felt so good.
It really did. It's a very important moment that I remember her. We didn't talk about this, but Matt and I broke up for a moment, like a few months, and my mom happened to call me. It was like 6 a.m. in the morning, and I was working at that time, and she was like, "What's wrong with you? You just sound like down." And I was I was down, and I told her, I was like, "Well, I was dating this guy, and it's not working out, or like, we have some things to work on." And she was like, first things first, she goes, "Is he a believer?" And I was like, "Well, we're talking about it. We're working on that." And she goes, "That's going to be the number one priority, that he loves the Lord." And I go, "Yeah, I know." And then she goes, "You know what? I'm going to pray for a creative miracle." That's the words right out of my mouth. Okay. And I was like, that just like gave me tingles, and I'm not a real tingly person, so I was like, man, I just felt like, wow, my mom is just nailed that for me, like her support in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we could pray for a creative miracle if this is God's will for me. And she also said, don't lead him on. Like, in plain English, she said, I'm going to pray for a creative miracle, but do not lead him on. So I was like, solid advice, Mom.
What did you think that breakup did for your relationship?
It showed me that I am not a prisoner to like my age being defining of if I don't marry him, it's the end of the world,
Mm.
or it also broke me of it broke some habits that I have. It's just like negative habits in relationship, that had come up. I just want to caveat here. One thing that's really important is when you're dating, you're learning more about yourself than you're learning about the other person. Through every experience, you're uncovering your bad habits, your good habits, your tendencies, whether good or bad. All of those things just like start rising to the top. So it's really good, if you don't have a lot of experience in dating, to speak with a professional, a therapist, a counselor. We've all grown up with different types of traditions and backgrounds, whether it's, church culture and Indian culture, or whatever, tradition you might come from. It's really important that you kind of put all that in perspective and unpack it, so that you don't repeat the same thing over and over again. Because it could be a detriment to you finding something beautiful because you're talking yourself out of things, or you're talking into settling.
What would you say, guys, to that person? I'm thinking of several people, but that single person, whether they've never been married, divorced, and wanting to get remarried, whatever the situation, and they've tried their hand at love over and over and over again, different relationships, many relationships, and it just doesn't seem to work. What piece of advice, what wisdom would you give them to keep going? Do they keep going to try online dating? I mean, what pieces of wisdom would you give them?
I think it really comes down to, because my dating experience, I never went into dating as this person's going to be my wife. That's not how I approached dating. I think a lot of people go into dating and they put a lot of pressure on themselves.
Yeah.
They say, you know what, this could be the one, with every single person that they date, because we all really want to find love. We all know how love feels. And when you find it, you don't want to let that feeling go ever. So I didn't go into relationships putting that pressure on myself. I went into it saying, I'm going to have fun and see where this goes. And then you get to know that person better. And then eventually you go, you know what, this is somebody that I could love. And then we go, well, you know what, after you fall in love with somebody, then you go, you know what, this is somebody that I could spend the rest of my life with. Okay. So I always took it step by step. I never went into any phase of my life. You know, you graduate high school, the expectation is you go to college, then you go to college, then you have to get married, then you get married, then you have to have kids and buy a house. Like, sort of, there's all these expectations and pressures that we put on ourselves. And I think love is no different. Love is a choice. So you choose who you love. And once you get married, you have to choose to love that person every single day. So enjoy the ride. Like, do I miss dating? Absolutely. Because I had fun when I dated. I loved dating. And now I love Liz, and I would not trade Liz for dating because I love Liz. So you have to enjoy the moment that you're in, to be honest with you. And I don't think enough people do that. They look at the outside pressures of everything.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Have fun. If you're not having fun, it's not worth doing.
Wow.
You go into this with like, I'm gonna find the love of my life. It's okay to be optimistic. It's okay to have fun. Ask all the questions, eat all the food, do all of the things that you do on dates, but walk away with an open mind, knowing who you are, which is very important, because if you don't know who you are, you can get really caught up in like a really ugly cycle of like, no one loves me. A lot of self-rejection starts happening. And that's why I want to go back to what I said earlier. It is real. If you've never dated before, or you don't have a lot of co-ed relationships or friendships of the opposite sex, it might be good to just start dipping your toes into like community groups or small little opportunities for you to like learn how to interact with someone of the opposite sex. And also, again, I'm going to go back to talk to your therapist, unpack those things that are happening in your mind, like self-rejection, or, I'm not good enough. This is not going to work out. Those thoughts that we battle with, you might talk yourself out of something that's going really great just because you're caught up in your own head.
And going to what Liz said about knowing yourself before you can actually get into a meaningful relationship. I've had friends in the past and they didn't know themselves well enough. So when they got into a relationship, they took on that personality of the other person because they didn't have a strong confidence in who they were as a person. So every relationship they were in, they just absorbed that personality of that person, and that became their personality. So whatever they liked as well. Whatever they did as well. You also still have to know who you are, so you can each live. You're together, but you also have each other in your separate lives before you came together, right? So you still have to remember where you came from and who you are before you can get into a relationship with another person and don't know how to handle yourself, really.
Yeah, that's good. I love that, Lisa, that you said it's okay to be optimistic. I think that's so good. Because especially women, right? Especially older women, we're thinking, okay, hello, I'm 35, I'm 40, approaching 40. I only have so many eggs and I want to have kids. Let's be real. They're thinking, I got to make this thing happen. And they put stress on themselves.
Yes.
But it's okay to enjoy. It's okay to have fun and be optimistic.
If you're not having fun,
why do it? Honestly,
yeah,
you got to enjoy the ride. Life's fun. And
no, I love the attitude.
People, and do fun things with people you may have never met before. Enjoy the people you meet. Enjoy the time you're spending with everybody. The world's a fun, happy place.
And I think I love what you said also, Matt, where you said it's important you have to know yourself. You have to be whole because, we're never going to be 100% whole this side of heaven. No. But you need to be whole enough that you can carry and be married, because that in itself brings a lot of, struggle and it's just complex in itself,
Yeah.
So.
It is.
One of my favorite sermons that heard, I don't know how many times, but it's always living in the overflow, right? Your cup has to be full before you can have excess to give to somebody else. So if you're not full yourself, you won't have anything to give to your partner, and your partner cannot be everything. They cannot be your best friend, your wife, your therapist, your dad, your mom, your uncle, your grandfather. Like, they cannot be everything. You have to have those outlets in your own life as well. So when I come spend time with Liz, my cup's full, and now she's just enjoying me as a whole person, being full and whole.
So you guys have been married now for 4 years?
Coming up.
on
Yeah, this
4.
year will be 4 years.
Yay. So having been married almost 4 years, looking back, what are some of the questions you wished you would have asked, or what would you tell your younger selves about marriage?
Younger self, just calm down. Calm down. And when I say calm down, I mean, like, I think it had a lot to do with traditional pressure, like coming from the culture that we come from, church culture as well, compounds that pressure. And then over idealizing marriage from a very young age causes you to think that, oh, I'm going to turn 25 and my husband's just going to show up on my front door.
Right.
And,
Prince Charming. Yeah.
yeah. And little did I know that I had a lot of growing up to do between college and meeting him. There was a lot of naivety. He asked me a very poignant question the other day that really made me dig deep. I didn't realize, how naive I was in relationships until I started dating and I started meeting people. I mean, you gave some great points, like, being old, like, I said, it's okay to be optimistic. For me, it was like, the first person I met online, I was like, this is it. But
I just got done saying you don't go into every relationship thinking that it's the one.
I learned that the hard way. And the reason I learned that the hard way is that person turned out to be like feeding me lines. Like, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I see a future with you. And then ghosting. And like, it turned into like this whirlwind of just emotional torture. Right. So I think my younger self, I would just say, do not take it so seriously. Like, don't take it seriously until it needs to be taken seriously. I know that's I'm talking in a circle, but one thing about, like, when someone puts their intentions out there, you will know. Like, you don't have to work at it. You don't. Like, after our first date, he was like, hey, when can I see you again? And then after that day, when can I see you again? And then it became as understood that we were going to see each other all the time. And there was no question of where he stood, where I stood. Does he like me? Or does he mean what he says? Nothing was gray. It was understood.
Isn't it true, guys, that I've known this in my own life too with my husband, that when it's the right one, it just flows. It's just natural.
Yes.
Yeah. And like
You have to work so hard at it. It just is like ebony and ivory.
Yes.
Yeah. We, like she said, our first date, we talked about religion, politics. We talked about our past. We talked about our families. We literally talked about everything, because the conversation, it was like a hot knife through butter. It just,
And the thing was, we were both open, right? I wasn't having to pry anything out of him. It was an open book and I was an open book, and conversation came very easy. Now I understand, if you look at us, we look like, oh, they're very social people. I'm an open book in general. Not everyone is an open book, right? Some people are introverts, but that doesn't mean that they lack that they don't want to meet someone, or that they don't want to be loved, or you have the tools, whether introverted or extroverted, you have the tools to unlock somebody when they're interested. That's the point. The point is, you don't have to force it when it's real. Like, it just happens. It really.
Yeah.
And if I had $1 for every time I try to force it,
you'd be a millionaire.
It was a naivety of like wanting something so bad, that you just want to make it work. But I think that's where we, as our in human nature, our flesh is stepping in, or, just what we've been taught, but God knows what's the best timing. And that's what been one of my mantras for a very long time, is timing is everything. Because if I had met him a year sooner, I wouldn't have been ready. I
Wow.
a lot of things to learn and still process and self-actualize before I met him.
There's a season for everything and a time for everything, right?
Sure.
Well, Matt and Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your amazing love story. It's so beautiful. And I love, just you guys are so different, but you guys work so well together. I think it's just so beautiful what God does.
Absolutely. We agree. We're still happy.
Well, folks, if you are on the fence about online dating, look at Matt and Lisa. You should try and give it a shot. You may just find the love of your life. So don't give up on dating. Don't give up on love, because God doesn't give up on us. And you will find someone. Just keep on trying. Well, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Jolly.
Thank you, Jolly, for having us.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for being here.